guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy. He's sharing his story about events that happened decades ago, and I mean, we're talking about a time before cell phones and the internet, about how he was young and he started his own company. He was doing well on his purpose, and one of the companies that he did business with, they had their daughter was working for them. She was a receptionist or something, and she took a big liking to him and started actively pursuing him. And at first he thought, oh, she's a pretty girl, cool. They went out to eat, and then finds out that she has a boyfriend. But of course, she doesn't care. And this whole story is about how she's been relentlessly pursuing him and how he pretty much was making it clear, hey, we're just friends, okay? Now, you're going to see in this story, I'm going to point out this guy should have just avoided her because she was the daughter that people he did business with. But putting that aside, relentlessly pursuing a guy that didn't want her. Main themes in this story here, guys, and ultimately this guy is going to pretty much tell her, I'm not going to be your side piece. And she has a meltdown, freaks out about that. But some very important, aside from the entertainment factor here, you're going to see how I talk about all the time, how about attention and validation, how they can't live without it, and how the more they want a guy, what they can't have, they're going to chase and pursue it, and it's going to make them crazy. Very important theme, real life example of that. And also how some of these gals will want to have a guy as their side piece because they'll stay with the guy they're with because he helps pay the bills and all that. They want to have the cake and eat it too, and they don't care. They don't care at all. They'll make up stories about him and all that, but yet they're still with the guy, right? Amongst many other things I think are of value in this story. So it starts off, he says, hello SSM. I'm writing to share a learning experience from many, many years ago. This is before cell phones and the internet were around. It was an experience that taught me just how fast a woman can get completely caught up in an affair. In a nutshell, I was the other guy who was pursued by a woman who was involved with a live-in boyfriend. Before I get into my story, let me say this. I currently know of 2 examples of younger women wanting an open relationship or open marriage. The open relationship never materialized because the boyfriend, though devastated, broke up with the girlfriend and moved away. The open marriage is acceptable by the husband because he, as described by his mother-in-law, the wife's mother, is too weak to tell her no. So he tolerates his wife having a date with her boyfriend one day each week. I've heard about the whole open concept, but never thought I would actually know someone involved. It just boggles my mind what a bunch of BS. You're darn right it's all BS and it's being sold. And right here he just said he knows somebody that's doing this, and basically because the guy's too weak to say no and stand up for himself. Happens every time I do a story, something like that. So he says, my story. And this is a longer one, guys, but it's a good one. It's entertaining. Let me begin by saying I had two long-term relationships before this, a high school girlfriend and a college girlfriend. I was shy and didn't have a whole lot of confidence to ask a girl out. I did, however, work out with weights and have a toned physique. This attracted both my high school and college girlfriend and got them to each approach me and break the ice. Once the ice was broken, my confidence increased, and I got to be a good of a boyfriend as I could be without putting either girl on a pedestal. Both girls never seemed to lose their attraction to me. They were both nice. There was plenty of sex, and each relationship ended amicably. Well, sounds good, man. And good for you back then, no, not to put them on a pedestal. It's a big mistake that so many guys do. Fast forward a few years later, let's call her A. A was about 26, my age, and worked for her parents. They had a supply company, and I owned a retail operation and wanted to purchase some of the products from them. I spoke on the phone with A, and after giving her the rundown of their most popular items, I placed an initial order with her. We chatted for a few minutes afterwards, and I explained that I was involved in some product development as well. After hanging up, I went about my day. 2 days later, I was at work and got a phone call from A. She wanted to know if the order arrived. I confirmed with her that it did. She began a conversation. We spoke for a short while. Again, this is from years ago, so I can't remember every little detail on the phone and whatnot. It was more of a casual conversation outside of work. Translation, she liked you, she was attracted to you, and she's finding excuses to talk to you. You know, of course she's doing business to find out that the order arrived and you liked it, blah, blah, blah. That's good business. But obviously you can already tell she's interested. The following day, she called again. I told her I can't really talk when my operation was open and asked if she could call me when we closed for the day. She did again, more conversation like getting to know you. The same happened the next day. You know, when girls like you, women like you, they pretty much make it obvious. You know, right here. She's relentlessly pursuing this guy. By this time, we'd spoken for probably 2 hours total. I took hold of the reins and invited her out for dinner that weekend so we could meet in person. Her parents' company was fairly local, so I knew she wasn't too far away. She loved the idea and told me she would come to my store and we could go from there. I didn't think anything particular at the time. Now, that's cool. You were interested in this girl and you didn't know what, obviously, you're about to find out. But here's where I have a problem. You do business with her family, okay? And you date her and something goes wrong, it could have an impact on your business. Remember, purpose comes first in all elements of that. So you shouldn't be jeopardizing your business and livelihood over some chick. And I get he was younger and he didn't know any better, but these are little things, examples I want to point out when I read these stories, guys. It's not worth it. If you stop doing business with them, then that'd been a different ballgame. He says, A was on time and went to dinner. I drove it to a nearby restaurant. Let's get the look stuff out right away now. Visually, she was decent looking, nice face with a somewhat petite figure. Not as good looking as my high school girl, but better looking than my college girl. Not that it really mattered. The conversation went well until about halfway through dinner. Now listen to this, guys. It was then that we got on the subject of where each of us lives. I told her I own my own place, and she told me, and I quote, I'm sort of living with someone. She right away excused herself to use the restroom, probably to sit in the stall, call a friend, and ask if she did the right thing by telling me that. I sat there thinking, why the hell didn't she tell me this when I asked her out to dinner? Because she wanted you to meet you, and you to have fun, and you to find her attractive, so that then you wouldn't care if she was with someone or not. So she has a little boyfriend, a guy she lives with, but she's out with you. What does this say about her character? She's a cheater. She's a liar. She's devious. She's a user. And so before any of you guys start thinking, well, she'll do it to him one day. I held my composure and decided that she would be friendzoned and nothing more. Once she returned to the table, she offered us some tidbits of information about her living arrangement, how long they were together, and how things were just okay between them. Okay, if you're not happy in your relationship, end it. Walk away. But don't go cheating on your guy. But you'll see in a moment how she justifies her actions. I got my new friend off the subject and moved on to something else to talk about. After dinner, I drove us back to my business. We said the typical goodbyes, no kiss, and she drove off. I, a single man, just spent the evening with a woman who obviously has relationship issues. Whatever. Well, bro, that's when you should have been backed away and called it off. But you're going to see he definitely likes the attention and being sought after and chased. And thus we have this story. The next day while at work, I got a box of cookies delivered by a large cookie company. They were ordered and sent on behalf of A. The note says something to the effect of, thank you for dinner last night, let's do it again sometime. I called and thanked her for the cookies. She told me how much she loved talking to me and how she appreciated how I really listened to her and that her boyfriend doesn't really seem to care about what she says. Here we go, trashing the boyfriend. She asked if I'd still be interested in going out again, and I told her I would, but it would be strictly as a friend, and I made it clear that I don't want to cause any issues between her and her boyfriend. Well, bro, if you're hanging out with her, and he obviously doesn't know about it, then you are causing issues. Should have just said no. And honestly, I don't get why you're hanging out with some chick when you're not hooking up with her. To me, that's the biggest waste of time ever. Again, you're young, you're on your purpose. Seriously, I just don't get it. But of course, you just like the attention and the sexual tension there and all that. Anyhow, he says, to be clear, my purpose at the time in my life was to build my business while also focusing on my project developing interest. He said, yes, A was fun and pleasant, distraction from the previous evening, but no way I was going to make her my top priority. Well, good. No woman should be your top priority. Ever. Your purpose, your ambitions, guys, should be your top priority. That's how you're going to get anywhere in this world. And guess what? They like guys that are ambitious and goal-oriented. They'll complain that they're not the top priority, but they'll still stay with those guys. But this woman is trouble, man. Over the next 6 weeks, she would contact me at least 3 times a week by sending faxes during the day, calling after hours while I was at work, and sometimes would call when I was at home. We ended up going out to dinner 3 more times. I gave her my home number because I didn't want to have to stay at work when she called after hours. I worked 7 days a week building my business and went to the gym almost every night for about half an hour, about an hour to hour and a half. Dude, your life sounds like my life. I don't go to the gym that much, but I do work every freaking day. You know, the only time I didn't work was I was on vacation over Christmas and New Year's, and I just had stockpiled videos, and I was uploading them because I'm sure you guys obviously saw them during Christmas and New Year's. But other than that, I'm doing videos every day and filming and planning videos and all that. I'm on my grind. I know what it's like. But if he wanted some distraction, I'm sure he could have had other people to hang out with. And if he's spending his time with a woman, at least he could be hooking up with her, not her, but somebody else. But he was young. He was learning. He says, I felt really bad for A at the beginning. At the beginning. She was living with a guy who, in her words, was abusive and distant. Well, her parents own a business, so they got some money. She could obviously live with them if there's a problem with him. But no, it's easier just to cake and eat it too. Their relationship was for 1 week on, 1 week off. Or their relationship was on 1 week and off for 3. Yet she stayed with him. There were times, I do admit, that I would send her a quick fax while she was at work just to give her a bit of attention. I definitely did not want her as a girlfriend, but I did enjoy making her feel better about herself, if only for a brief moment. Sound like you're being a little bit of a white knight there, dude. Plus, having a woman pursue me was good for the ego. Well, I respect that you can admit that. It does feel good, I will admit that, but look what also you're bringing in with that feel-good moment. There's others that can give you attention and boost your ego. She would call in the evening to unleash about how shitty things were between them. She referred to him as the thorn in her side, and how she really, really wanted me, and instead, both emotionally and physically. There was one evening when she was about an hour and a half away at a convention, and she called me to ask if I could drive there and spend the night with her in the hotel room. Oh, what a great girlfriend. I decided to tell her that's too far and I need to be at work the next morning. I continually remind her that I'm just a friend, not interested in causing issues between them, and that she needed to have the guts to break it away from him. I asked why she stayed with him and always got the same response. I don't know. See, guys, this was decades ago, but this behavior is no different than the shit that goes on today. And her response, I don't know. How many of you guys have heard that one? I asked her once if he was to move out and live 15 minutes away, would she even go to see him? She was just silent. I knew there was something more to it, and I finally found out. Now we're going to get to the real good stuff here. The truth, which he finally admitted after a few weeks, was this. They were living in her parents' rental home. He paid the $1,100 a month rent, and she paid the utilities. There was no way she could afford the home and live to her means without him paying the rent. So basically, she did what was needed to keep him around for financial reasons. She told me this, and I responded somewhat angrily, and told her that she was admitting to being a $1,100 a month WHORE. Well, that didn't go over very well. She denied being a WHORE and got angry with me, but I just told her to take a look at the situation. Here she was pursuing another guy to have an affair with while she stayed in a toxic relationship with her boyfriend and gave him sex to influence him to pay the $1,100 a month every month. That's pretty much it. And again, this was her parents. I mean, you can't tell me her parents wouldn't give her a deal or she could live with her parents when she's getting things together. She just wanted to have her cake and eat it too. And look how she's relentlessly pursuing this guy, you know? And let me tell you guys, I mean, I'm sure many of you guys have experienced this. When women like you and you just see them as a friend and don't really carry the way, they just won't stop. You can't beat them away with a stick. They'll just keep coming after you and coming after you because their egos can't handle the fact that you don't want them, especially if they're good looking. If they're the type that can get guys pretty easily and you're not like the rest of the guys beating down a door to get them and chasing after them, making them your priority, they set their sights on you and they won't stop until they get you. And interestingly, the second you start actually showing you're interested, then they back away and they find somebody else. It's really messed up, but it's amazing to me how this is. And it doesn't make a difference what time period we're in, what your culture is, what part of the world you're in, what men do and respond to, what women do and respond to. It doesn't make a difference where you are, what time period. It is what it is. Messed up, but it is what it is. His story continues. A continued to call me after telling me the truth. We would have great conversations about current events, life, and my project developing interest. She was great to talk with until she brought up her relationship agenda. She would tell me that she wanted me to be her real boyfriend, and that she would only keep her boyfriend in the picture to pay the rent. So she wants to stay with him to pay the rent, but she also wants to have this guy so she can have her cake and eat it too. And this guy, thank God, is not going for this, and you can't tell me that, let's just say she dropped the guy she lived with, and she lived with this guy here. The second she was feeling like her needs weren't being met, she would do the same thing. This is her character. I really thought I'd get through a video, but of course I got more sirens. We could just be like any other happy couple. The only stipulation would be that she would have to have you-know-what with her boyfriend here and there, and especially toward the end of each month, so he would pay the next month's rent. Of course, she didn't mention our whole relationship would have to be a secret, so her boyfriend never found out. As usual, I told her, not interested. You should have cut her off, man. You should have cut her off a long time ago. I know you know this looking back, but this is a good lesson for the other young guys watching. In a way, I enjoyed the whole scenario of having a woman chase after me and want me this badly. I was naive at the time and didn't understand that women naturally want what they can't have. Yes, they do. It's interesting. The men just aren't like that in the same way. Some guys are, but generally men are not like that in that same way that so many gals can be. Each time we met for dinner, she would try to seduce me into getting physical with her. Admittedly, there was one evening where things got a little hot and I almost gave in to desire, but stopped the situation beforehand. You should have cut off. I know I keep saying this, but you should have cut off a long time ago. Focus on your business, or if you want to hook up, find another chick that doesn't have a boyfriend, for goodness sake. After that evening, I held my ground and continued to tell A she would need to break it off with her boyfriend before I even considered getting intimate with her. And we both knew that wasn't going to happen. The scenario continued like this until she got a bit too immersed in her agenda. I was home on a Sunday morning. It was toward the end of the month. The phone rang and I answered, and it was A. She didn't call in the morning, so this was something new. I could tell by the sound of her voice that she sounded concerned. She asked me how I was doing, and I told her I was doing fine. I was working on my project and was planning on going into work in a couple hours and following that up with a trip to the gym. I asked her what she was planning on doing that day. She told me she wasn't sure, but was calling to see if I was okay. This all sounds a little weird and fishy. I told her I didn't understand what she was asking. She went on to explain that she had sex with her boyfriend last night so that he would think everything is okay and pay the rent for the next month. And she wanted to know if I was having a hard time dealing with that. She further admitted to be thinking about and wishing it was me on her last night rather than her boyfriend. I told her once again I didn't care what she did with him. It's not going to bother me if she's having you-know-what with her boyfriend. It's her choice to do what's necessary to stay with him and preserve her lifestyle. I wasn't her boyfriend and not involved in a relationship with her. Well, dude, you were in a relationship. You were in an emotional relationship, if you will. So you were cheating with her, but just in a different type of way. It just wasn't physical. You had everything else in a relationship except a physical relationship, okay? So you were, in essence, coming between her and the boyfriend. But listen to how she's saying this here. How she, at the end of the month, she makes sure she sleeps with him so he'll pay the rent for the next month and so forth. Anybody with integrity would just end the relationship. She could find a place to live. And I'm wondering, I want to bet you it wasn't that bad with the boyfriend as she's making it out to be. He goes on, there was nothing more than friendship between us, and really, she needed to accept that. We probably chatted about some other things before hanging up each other, going about our day. Later in the day, I began getting bothered by the fact that A called me that morning. The fact that she called me to make sure I was okay with her having you-know-what for the $1,100 was really degrading. I say degrading because I could see that in her mind we were already a couple. She knew I wasn't okay with her basically cheating. She was going to do it anyways, and she needed to comfort me to help me process and deal with it. Like I said, you were in a relationship. You were in an emotional relationship. The only thing I was missing was the hooking up, only because you drew the line there. She wanted to hook up with you, but I'll give you credit. You weren't going to do that, but you were cheating with her, just in a different way. This is what she, again, in her mind, had reduced me down to. I was the guy who made her feel heard and listened to. I was the guy who cared about her well-being. I was the guy who was brutally honest and upfront with her. I was the guy who made her feel like she was in a brand new, exhilarating relationship. I was the guy who wanted desperately to have you-know-what with, and I was the guy who would also have to tolerate her having you-know-what with her banker, the live-in boyfriend. There you go. He says our quote-unquote relationship, as I saw it, was consistently one-sided. She would call me, I didn't call her. I didn't need her in my life, but she obviously wanted me in hers. I didn't appreciate being made to feel like I was supposed to be there at her beck and call while out of financial necessity. She was banging her live-in boyfriend. This was BS. Well, bro, you let the BS go on. You should have cut off a long time ago. I know you know this, but I'm speaking to you many decades ago. I made the decision that night to end this whole scenario. Finally, bro. A obviously convinced herself that she could somehow manipulate me into being okay with this. Well, that's what they do. That's the superpower. She convinced herself that this needed to happen. She convinced herself that, yes, she could have her cake and eat it too. The problem for her was this. I unfortunately wasn't going to be a part of it. I thought too highly of myself to get involved with someone who thought so little of me. I wasn't going to give my 100% to a woman who would only give 75% in return. I was done. A called a few days later and asked if I would go to dinner with her. I told her I would, but it would be the last time. When you said that, she's probably thinking like, bullshit, I can get this guy to do whatever I want. I explained that the whole scenario, in my opinion, was never going to progress between us because she refused to break away from her boyfriend, and I didn't want to come between them. I wasn't going to be her side boyfriend while she stayed in a toxic relationship for $1,100 a month. She wasn't happy with me telling her this, but I still wanted to go to dinner. Bro, don't you have any other friends to hang out with? Come on. So we go out to dinner, and we had a great conversation while eating at a Chinese restaurant. Afterwards, A wanted to go to a nearby bar and do some shots. She made me a bet that she could drink more than me without getting too drunk. I knew where she was headed with this, and again, it felt so good to be wanted so badly by a woman who desperately wanted to get me into the sack. I'm sorry, but sloppy seconds just didn't sound appetizing to me, not to mention the obvious threat of catching an STD. A was pretty out of it by the third shot. Me, I was fine. It was then that she slammed her glass shot on the table and read me the riot act. Thank goodness it was late and the bar was basically empty. Now listen to her freaking out here. In a nutshell, her words were like this. F my name. I don't get it. Why won't you have sex with me? I throw myself at you. What's wrong with me? Excuse me, guys. She said, you're like the effing Terminator. There's something programmed in your effing CPU of a brain that tells you not to touch me with a 10-foot pole. Other guys wouldn't give a shit if I had a boyfriend. Other guys wouldn't give a shit if they had a girlfriend. If I gave them the opportunity to get in bed, they would have done it already. What's wrong with you? She's freaking out because he doesn't want her. Again, back to the whole they chase after what they can't have. I gave her the same answer I'd given her a number of times. I wasn't going to have you-know-what with a woman who's involved in a relationship. It's not fair to her boyfriend who she's keeping in the dark about this whole thing. It's deceitful and dishonest to keep him around for $1,100 a month while she 2 times him with me, and I want no part of it. Yeah, but you were in a relationship with her. You were cheating with her. I know you know this now, but I keep saying this. It's what I told her next and her reaction to what I said that really proved to me it was time to walk away. I told her something like this. What happens if I'm your side boyfriend and I find another woman that I'm generally interested in? What do I tell her? I can only be your boyfriend for a week and each month because I got to satisfy another woman who's in a toxic relationship and refuses to break up. A said nothing. The look she gave me said it all. You can't have a girlfriend. You need to be my beck and call whenever I need you. You're for me to fill the void in my relationship. I can't have you splitting up your attention between me and another woman. That puts a serious damper on the arrangement. There you go. I told her once again to break up if her relationship is really that awful. If 1,100 reasons were enough to justify her unhappiness, then so be it. It was her life. It was her choice. We finished our drinks and she dropped me off back at my workplace. Wait a minute. She was drunk from the shots and you got in the car with her and she drove you back to your workplace? Smack. It's not worth it, dude. She could have gotten into an accident. I went to get in my van and realized I left my wallet in her car. I called her at work the next morning to tell her and arranged to get back. A verified she did have it and that her boyfriend saw it and was furious about it. How interesting. She lied and told him it was just some dude she and her friend met at a bar. We agreed to meet at a halfway point between us. We met in a parking lot. I got my wallet from her and said goodbyes and left. A called me the next week and asked to go to breakfast just as friends. I thought, what the heck? Why not? and we met for breakfast a couple of days later. Smack. Dude, I thought you were going to stop hanging out with her. And notice she's still pursuing you because she knows you're going to just keep doing it, and you're enabling her behavior because you keep going out with her. You said you were done, but yet you're still hanging out with her. She told me during the conversation that she valued my friendship but couldn't pursue me sexually any longer. I had no problem with that. We had a great conversation and parted ways afterwards. I didn't hear from her again. I knew enough to know that she would cut off contact. Why? Because the banker boyfriend was furious and she better do what was necessary to keep the banker happy. I didn't wish her any ill will and moved on with my life. You're darn right she's not going to mess up her meal ticket for the rent. And notice, the second he found out about you, and interesting he happened to find out about you the same night that you pretty much told her, nope, that's it, we're done. She freaked out and had a meltdown. So, what were some of the takeaway lessons I learned from all this? And this is good, this is dead on, guys, the point of the video. First, a woman, just like some men, will be dishonest in the beginning just so you go out with her. She wants attention and validation. Didn't tell me she was living with someone until we actually went out and were halfway through dinner. Had she told me that beforehand, she would have lost out on me taking her to dinner and possibly ending up having you-know-what. And she didn't want to take that chance. She waited until even later to admit to being $1,100 a month WHORE. Second, a woman in need of validation will do almost anything to get it. Between calling and faxing, it was probably 4 or 5 times a week. I have no doubt if this scenario were going to be on today's world, she would have been texting me sexy photos to get a reaction from me. And he says, not nudes. She seemed a bit insecure about herself to do that. I never asked her on a date after our first dinner either. She would always be the one to ask if we can get together. Furthermore, I wouldn't go out of my way to get together. She would always make it easy to come to me because she's chasing after you and pursuing you. When they want you, they'll make it very easy to get together. Third, when a man friend zones a woman and denies her advances, it creates more desire for him. The denial of validation makes her crave that validation and acceptance from him even more. Her desire for him will make her question not what's wrong with him, but what is wrong with her. Yes, dead on. She'll try harder to find a way to seduce him, not as a way to please him, but to gain the lost confidence back for herself. Yes, this guy is why women will relentlessly pursue you. If they like you, and believe me, they have options with guys, and you're not chasing after them, and you're friendly with them, but you're not chasing after them, it makes them crazy. Because why is he chasing after me? Why isn't he, acting like the other guys? And it damages the ego. And they'll just chase, and you can't beat them away with a stick. They'll just keep coming back. And you may think after a while, you haven't heard from for a while, okay, she's finally gotten the point. And then she's back again, tried it, I'm sure some of you guys have dealt with this. He says, lastly, always be assured a woman's needs and wants will come before anything, even you. A had 1,100 reasons to cheat on her boyfriend instead of being faithful to him. She needed his money but wanted another boyfriend. Her needs outweighed everything else. I'm sure A will have a boyfriend both played a part in her relationship issues, but she had 1,100 reasons not to tell him it's over and end it. I never heard her say anything about trying to work on things to make the relationship better. I only heard her complain about how things were mostly bad between them. So from my perspective, A kept her boyfriend around because he paid the rent, not because she really wanted him in her life. Like I say, SSM, watch for those red flags. Don't deny your gut feeling. If your girl starts to act like trash, don't be afraid to dump her. Amen. That's a good story, man, and you hit the nail on the head so many times, the things you learned. So this is a good story because really you guys can see exactly what I talk about the validation, what they'll do to get it. And if they have a guy there that's obviously taking care of the bills and all that stuff like that, they're going to stick with that guy. You got it right here. But look how she relentlessly pursued him. Attention and validation, guys. And the old cake and eat it too. And he's right about the needs and the wants. This is why, like I said, a lot of times gals will marry guys that they're not in love with at all, but they need them to have that, to fulfill the life goals, to get married, have the house, have the kids and all that. And then eventually some, not all, but some will eventually cheat so they can have the wants fulfilled from Chad and Tyrone. But they're not going to typically not leave that guy if they can avoid it. And they don't want to have the divorce because they need that meal ticket and that public image and all that. So good lessons here, but good for this guy. He's not going to be her side piece and all that, but still, he enabled her behavior, bro, and we all know it. And I know you know it later on, okay? And you were in a relationship with her. It just wasn't a physical one, okay? So you definitely weren't a saint in this situation, but I don't think you completely saw it that way when you were younger. I'm sure you do now. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And also, guys, if you have a great story you'd like to share with me, by all means, email to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just make sure it's well written, easy for me to read. This also goes for any articles you may have. And also be sure to check me out on Instagram or Locals, Strong Successful Male, making a big push in that this year. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.